Nay was asking about my PhD dissertation, and obviously it's a dissertation, so it's kind of a lot to put in the comments, so just a quick video reply. Nay was asking what were my findings. In my dissertation, the title is Unheard Victims of COVID-19, the Impact of Mask Use on Communication for Deaf and Hard of Hearing People. So there were 3 parts to my dissertation. The first part was just the question of who are deaf and hard of hearing people, basically like who falls into this category, because my hypothesis was that this group of people is extremely diverse, and so the impacts of masks on communication are going to affect different sects of that group differently. And so basically someone who has a cochlear implant and speaks and doesn't use ASL is going to be impacted by masks very differently than someone who doesn't have any hearing at all, doesn't speak, doesn't use, only uses ASL. Like, they're going to have a very, very different communication impact. And then my second question was like, how did, and this is all paraphrased, I'm not looking at my dissertation right now, but the second question was basically, how effective were the mandates at actually addressing this problem for deaf and hard of hearing people? Like, did they even talk about it? And my findings were that most of the statewide mandates either didn't mention deaf or hard of hearing people, or they did mention them but didn't handle it very well. A lot of the mandates were either so specific in their exceptions or so general in their exceptions that they basically were useless. My big significant finding in that section was that Puerto Rico actually had what I consider like a perfect law in this circumstance, where they basically said masks are absolutely required, but we should be taking into account individualized situations for people with disabilities or other things that may affect communication or whatever. It was something that was like super it was still strong. Everyone has to wear masks, while also being like, there are circumstances where we should use our human judgment, and providing examples of what that is. So that was my big finding there. And then the last section was how did masks affect communication? And my big finding there was masks affected communication, or not communication, but how did they affect deaf and hard of hearing people in general. And so my findings were that it contributed to isolation and things that people who are deaf and hard of hearing already experience in a very hearing-centric world. And also and I also found that those who use ASL, while they reported levels of discomfort and effect on communication, they actually reported slightly lower impact than those who don't use ASL, which makes sense when you think about it, because people who don't use ASL are relying more heavily on hearing ability that they still have, on visual cues, whereas people who use ASL, if you take out facial expressions, it totally changes ASL. However, you can still understand some things. You can still get a general idea often, whereas if you take out the visual aspect, if I were to do this and talk to you and you couldn't hear me, you're not really going to get anything. So yeah, that was my dissertation in 3.5 minutes. So yeah. Oh, also Nay said, in a perfect world I would advocate for women in America to have 12-month maternity leave versus 12 week. Yeah, me too. I mean, women in America don't even get 12 weeks. Only some people get that 12 weeks, and if they do, it's often unpaid. I would be advocating for everyone to get parental leave for 12 months for both women and men. I want everyone to be able to spend that time. I remember, I work from home, so I'm lucky that I still get to be with my baby most of the time, but I remember just being so upset about, she can't even sit up, she still needs me, and I'm expected to care about work. It's rough. It's rough out there. Anyway, hope you have a good day. Oh, and if anyone's actually interested in reading my dissertation or skimming it, or looking at my graphics or something, it's called The Unheard Victims of COVID-19, the Impact of Mask Use on Communication for Deaf and Hard of Hearing People, and that is by Kim Couch, Kym. So you can just find that go to scholar.google.com. Just a general tip. If you're ever trying to find, any useful information on the internet and you don't want to just Google it, scholar.google.com is the way to find actual published peer-reviewed research.